Hey, everybody. Last time we talked, we were talking about how you can go into a place where you haven't been before, a space with people who are not the same kind of person that you are, and get to know them a little bit. And that's the first part of building relationships when you're trying to create that resilient community. So it's about that piece of making sure that you have the connections between the different subgroups so that you can be talking back and forth when stuff goes wrong. Like we talked a while back about how there are going to be certain incidents of election violence. I call those catalysts. Sometimes the sociological term for it is shocks, but it's like somebody's either going to do something violent or try to provoke violence. And we are probably not going to be able to stop every single incident of that. But we create that resilient community so that when something like that happens, we have a non-reactive community because we have people who have relationships with each other. We don't have ripples of violence if we actually know each other and we know that the rumors we're hearing and so forth are not true. So last time we talked to each other, we were saying, all right, how do I go about meeting these theoretical people who are not the same as me? And we talked about how you can go in and you can actually visit somebody else's space. But how? This is something that people say to me is, it's weird. It's like, how do I actually do this? Here's a few things that I've learned to do over time. When I go into somebody's Bible study or somebody's book club or somebody's volunteer opportunity or whatever it is, so that I can meet folks. First of all, I do feel a little weird. I feel a little bit shy. I feel a little bit awkward. And I've been doing this for a long time and I do it a lot. And still, there's a little bit of, I'm not a natural social butterfly. I have learned that it helps some if I try to suspend my expectations. So I'm not going to expect to have this highly successful visit every time I go in. Sometimes what I'm going to have is a series of awkward interactions, and then I'm not going to go back to that particular place because it turns out it just wasn't a very good opportunity. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'm not going to expect it to be amazing. I'm also going to try really hard not to have specific expectations about how people will act or what people will do or what might happen while I'm in this particular space. Because I just don't know. It's not my space. I've not been here before. I've not been to this particular restaurant. I've not been to this particular sporting event before. I don't know what's going to happen. I do try to go in humbly. I am a guest. I'm a visitor. I am not somebody for whom this space was originally made. I am not a regular. This is somebody else's thing. I'm jumping in. I'm asking permission to be part of it. I'm not coming in as somebody who's like gracing this thing with my presence. That's an incredibly important piece is I'm here and I know that I am a guest and I'm going to act like a guest. But then once I get there, another piece that can be really important is to remember that I'm trying to be a participant in the activity. I'm not trying to be a sociologist. There's this kind of natural temptation if you're going into a place where people are a different culture than you're accustomed to, because it's a group of people you've never met before and you haven't spent time with before, and they are intentionally not like you. So you're basically entering another culture. And there's this sort of natural tendency to like sit back and be a little bit hesitant and feel like you don't belong and then kind of just watch. And the thing is, if you're just watching, you're being a sociologist. You're not actually participating, you're not actually building relationships. So do the best you can to be a participant in the activity. Choose a team to cheer for, or jump in and grab a rake and help, rake up the leaves at the park if that's what you're doing. Whatever the activity is, you're trying really hard to actually participate. A lot of times somebody will bring a buddy to something like this, and going with a friend, going as a group of two into a new situation can actually feel a lot more comfortable. But if you do that, try not to Velcro to your buddy. You don't want to move around as a unit of two the entire time that you're there, because then you're just getting to know your own buddy and you're not actually getting to know the people who are there. This is one that feels really important to me, which is I have learned over time as I've gone into all kinds of different places, all kinds of different cultures, that most people try really hard to be hospitable to a guest. Except if it's a culture that I'm not familiar with, I don't actually know what hospitality looks like in that context. And so that can be a very strange experience. I go into one place and hospitality is a pile of carrot sticks and a dipper of hummus. And I go into another place and the food offered is butterscotches, like in a candy dish. And I go into another place and maybe they're serving hamburgers. Or it might not have anything to do with food at all. Hospitality in one place means somebody walks up to me and shakes my hand. In another place, they might actually want to give me a hug the first time we've ever met. And in another place, I walk in and everybody just gives me space and like they stand back and they let me come in, and maybe they wait for me to introduce myself instead of vice versa. So all of this is cultural. The way that people greet each other, the way that people talk to each other, the way that they welcome in a stranger, the hospitality that they offer, all of this is cultural. And so it helps a lot to kind of assume when you're going in that what they are showing you is hospitality, even if it doesn't feel like the kind of hospitality that you would show if somebody came into your space. Because again, it's a different culture. And then while you're there, if this is a group of people that's ideologically different, so they think differently than you do, you're going to hear some things that are maybe going to shake you up a little bit. And the question is how you're going to respond to that. Do you respond to that with immediate pushback to the perspective that you're hearing? Not really, not if you're going in as a guest, not unless it's something completely inappropriate. I mean, obviously, push back if somebody says something that's just wildly not okay and you feel like you have to. But if they're expressing ideas that aren't your own, maybe you listen really hard for the intent and you're reaching for empathy in this situation. So if you're saying something I disagree with, one of the first things I'm going to make sure of is, did I really understand what you said? Like maybe I'll ask some follow-up questions or I'll just keep listening. Did I actually understand? And then if what you're saying is a totally different perspective from the one that I have, and I'm trying to build a relationship, I'm probably not going to jump into a debate, but I might ask follow-up questions and find out what makes you believe that. Like, I want to understand you. I'm reaching for empathy. I'm not trying to talk you into something. And then the last piece of this is whatever situation I've gone into to visit, a book club or a craft circle or a ball game or a volunteer opportunity or an educational class, or I don't know, wherever it is that I've gone. If it is possible, I want to plan to return to the same opportunity again and see the same group of people again a second time, a third time, a fourth time. And the reason why I do that is because I'm assuming I haven't really built relationships in that first exchange. I don't have to get to know every single person in the town. What I need to do as an individual person trying to build that resilient community is just make a few connections that I didn't have before. 3 or 4. So maybe I go to 3 or 4 groups. I don't go to 25 different groups in the community. And I just get to know people a little bit. So those are some basic tips for how I would go in to visit in this new space, this new group of people that I'm trying to get to know. Again, how does this tie back to election violence? I'm interrupting those election violence patterns because I am saying I am not willing to otherize and dehumanize people that I don't know. I want to reach out, I want to get to know people and actually start to build relationships so that we can live in community peacefully together, or at the very least, non-violently together, even if we are disagreeing really vehemently about other things. Next time we talk, I want to give you a little bit about how I try to think about a visit after I've done it. So trying to learn from the experience that I've had. That's next time.